Try to remember your favorite teacher from high school. If you think about that teacher, what did they mean to you? Most people recall a kind teacher who gave them a second chance or who guided through a rough or confusing period of their life. While these qualities are important to how students learn, how many students would name their favorite teacher as someone who pushed them to try hard and perhaps did not let little things slide? In retrospect, these are the teachers that helped us the most, by enforcing that the world would not be easy and preparing us to succeed in college or on any other career path. However, in the moment, they were probably the teachers that students tended to dislike. Students cannot be trusted to grade teachers because they often misconstrue the idea of school. Undeserved bad student feedback tarnishes the reputation of good teachers. It gives students too much power over teachers, and the feedback would not cause much change in the curriculum. Giving students the power to grade teachers would become dangerous because students often do not have their priorities together at such a young age. Not every student aims to try their hardest, pushing away some aspects of a social life to make school a priority, and most students do not enjoy having hours of homework at night. In an article in the Phi Kappa Phi Forum, Tamara K. Baldwin says, studies have shown that many factors such as the time of day that a class is offered, the student's desire to take the class, and the student's anticipated grade in the class, whether or not the class is required or was an elective, or even the gender of the student and or the faculty member, to name just a few factors, can have effect on the ratings that the faculty member receives. Students can clearly be very biased in teacher evaluations. Think about the difference between a traditional AP student and a regular student. Both may be very hardworking and equally as mature, but AP students are more likely to take a review seriously and have the maturity to give real feedback. Because of this, some student feedback is less biased and more accurate than others. But how do you decide whose opinion is worth reading? Allowing students to grade teachers would not represent the actual skill the teacher has, as students could negatively bias against good teachers. My favorite teacher in high school was very, very harsh. She did her job really well, but she gave a lot of homework every night and had no tolerance for cell phones, a policy which she thoroughly enforced. She was a great teacher and helped me learn the material, but because of her harsh reputation, she probably would have gotten a bad review. Allowing students to grade teachers could have a detrimental effect on the reputation of good teachers and could lead to unfair pay or less favorable treatment towards harsher teachers. Letting students grade a teacher could negatively affect the power dynamic of a school. A teacher is supposed to be impartial, in control, and focused on teaching the group as a whole. Allowing students to grade their teachers would influence teachers to favor struggling students, grade easier, and be heavily swayed by student opinion. Evidence of this is seen in a survey by the Chronicle that said almost 2/3 of the teacher respondents said they thought students today were overwhelmingly harder to teach than those in the past, and they said student engagement had gotten worse. If a teacher saw a student struggling, they would be forced to slow the class in order to avoid a bad review from the student. Grades are a two-way relationship. Teachers must teach the material, and students must be willing to learn and put forth the effort to understand difficult concepts. The unearned arrogance encouraged by a reliance upon student evaluation helps produce passive, even contemptuous students who undermine the spirit of the class, a quote by Bunge. Students who are unwilling to try may blame teachers for their bad grades, even if the teacher has done all they could, leading to an undeserved bad review. Flux in the power dynamic of schools would give students power over teachers to get extra credit or easy ways to boost their grade, because if the student has a good grade, the teacher feels they would get a good review. Student feedback to teachers would not influence the curriculum because most teachers teach for an SOL or an end-of-year test and cannot change much about what they teach or the amount of homework they give. In a quote by Lamb, he says, teachers are often forced to give up fun activities that might help students learn, instead turning to lectures and worksheets because they have to finish curriculum by the end of the year test, like an SOL or an AP test. In addition, most students, when given the option, would choose not to give specific feedback and just select required options, or give vague answers to questions about how teachers could better their teaching style. So even if students could grade teachers, they would not give many reasons for their grade, just an easy final answer. In this sense, the teacher cannot change their teaching style to match what will help the students because they're not given a reason for their grade. Another reason why the curriculum would remain mostly untouched is that it would be impossible for a teacher to help every student. Students are all different, and teaching styles work better with some students than others. Even if the majority of students one year feel a certain way, the next year's students may be completely different, and a change in teaching style would not be necessary. Ms. Ball said that it is often difficult for teachers to predict what struggles a student may have, or what teaching style will work most effectively for specific students. While one student's feedback may be helpful to them, it could be detrimental to another student. Therefore, students should not be able to grade teachers because it would not help the teacher know how to effectively change their teaching style. Some people argue that teachers already have too much power in the classroom. They point to the fact that not all teachers are good, some don't teach necessary material, and some ignore the needs of students. In her dramatic story of everyday life of a teenager on her first day of a new year in high school, Brittany Taylor describes a series of terrible teachers, including a chemistry teacher who seems a bit too eager to be next to the girl. She describes this as a common occurrence in high school everyone could relate to. According to this, teachers like this are rampant. However, most teachers try to prepare students with necessary material because student test grades already do reflect on the success of a teacher. In Illinois, laws already exist that allow for a student's test grades on statewide tests to be included in teacher evaluations. And most teachers find a way to work with students who are special needs to try and create a healthy working environment for them. In her own story, Brittany Taylor reveals the answer to unwanted attention from teachers in the unfortunate incidents it does happen in. If the problem exists, students can reach out to parents, guidance counselors, and principals to try to fix the problems students may have with teachers or fix specific problems students may be having in a class. There are already ways set in place for students to grade teachers as a result of test scores reflected on the skills of the teachers, and students can express positive or negative feedback to many adults in a school. Others point to horrific stories in the news about teachers who have done terrible things to students and wrecked the students' learning environment. A teacher who took a joke too far was arrested in Maryland for taping a student to a chair. There's a story every year of a teacher entering in an inappropriate relationship with a student. However, these sensational news stories do not represent most teachers, and it paints a purposefully false and negative view of teachers. These stories do not represent teachers as a whole, and the majority of teachers should not be punished for the crimes of the minority. Legislators are also working to prevent these instances, making it impossible for sex offenders to enter into a teaching job. In California, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger passed laws to prevent teachers from entering the school system after they have committed a serious offense, which was found in the Associated Press. Legislators are also making moves to prevent parents from homeschooling their kids, saying they are unable to provide adequate instruction and that kids should be sent to school. Data shows that sending kids to school is overwhelmingly worth the risk of a predatory teacher and is mostly safe. In conclusion, students should not be able to grade teachers because they are often unsure of the direction of their life at a young age. It would give students too much power and would not have significant effect on the way teachers teach. Students should reflect on how they view their own teachers. A student doesn't always have to like the teacher to respect how they do their job and recognize the good the teacher has done in a student's life. Students should not just value the teachers who are kind and lenient, but also hard teachers who push students to achieve. You might ask what happens to helpful student feedback. And while helpful student feedback might be good to a teacher, the majority of student feedback would not be helpful. And what if a teacher really deserves bad feedback? If a teacher really deserves bad feedback, then it probably would show up in other areas of the teacher's life, as in test grades or complaints to a supervisor. And what power does a student have in the classroom? The student has the ultimate power, which is to learn. Students should be focused on learning all they can and taking the most of the opportunities that are presented to them, instead of worrying about how much they have to do.